folks, and welcome back to another episode of the What Are You All About podcast. Today we had the White Collar Sideshow on, and it was really cool to talk to them and hear their testimonies because they had some pretty radical changes. And whenever you ask someone about kind of how did they start being a Christian, you never know what you're going to get. But that was really cool, and they talked a lot about how God has showed up while they've done their band, the White Collar Sideshow, and just followed Him, and that it hasn't necessarily been like financially abundant, but it's been a great life. And yeah, I think you guys will really enjoy this one. Let's get right into it.
Guys. Hello, guys. I'm Elijah, and this is the What Are You All About podcast where we talk about kind of what people are all about and what's the story behind that. So that includes their faith, their art, and literally anything else that fits in that category. So, you guys are in a band called the White Collar Sideshow, which doesn't really fit into any genre box, but it is a very unique and special band. It's kind of whatever you guys want to do with it within some parameters. But would you guys like to introduce yourselves and then kind of answer what are you guys all about and what is the story behind that?
My name is T, and I play drums and I sing in the White Collar Sideshow. And over the course of the last 15 years, I've been the ringleader, whatever you call it. Like, we've gone through such transition and evolution through the course of the years that it's just been interesting. But that's part of the journey, right? Like, it all started with dreams. It all started with, really direction from the Lord and going, is this something that we really want to do? Are we putting all of our, coins on the table, so to say, and are we going to go and just dive right in? And this is my wife, Veronica. And I'll let her kind of navigate some of this.
Cool. So I'm Veronica. I play bass, but I also, I actually wasn't the bassist in the beginning of the band. So White Collar started from a series of dreams that T had shortly after we got married. And he started just deciding he wanted to write these dreams down, and he would tell me about these dreams. And I was like, just no, this is weird. Keep writing. I don't know. Like, it was stuff like, well, it was always very drum intensive, and then there was video in the back, but then he would start talking about like
I'm a horror movie fan.
For sure.
Yeah.
But he'd start talking about a pig drummer or a chick in a go-go cage. And I'm just like, wait, I'm sorry, what? And then he continued to explain it more and more. And obviously it made more sense, but he was already in a band at the time. And the premise really of the whole first show talked a lot about his struggle with pornography addiction back in the day, and us navigating that as a married couple and trying to work through that. And so on July 16th, 2006, literally 15 years ago, a missionary came and spoke at our church and said, if your life was a bumper sticker, what would it read? And for me, it was the American Dreamer. And so I essentially had this, like, I call it my jump day, this moment where the Lord is like, then give it up. Obviously that's not worth living for, and you're not finding satisfaction in that. I've given your husband these dreams. Let's turn this into reality. And so I call it my jump day. And that was the big day. I called T and said, I'm quitting my job. We're selling our cars. We're selling our house. We're selling everything. We're putting these dreams together, and we're going to hit the road. And so it's crazy. But our first performance was just two drummers at first. It was him and the pig guy playing drums.
Phil was his name.
Phil lived with us, and he was on the road with us. Gosh, we were part of his life for, I don't know.
Yeah, we did 2 albums together.
Yeah,
and then he toured with us
a long time.
Yeah, for a long time.
And so then T actually said he had a dream about a chick bass player, and that's when I actually picked up the bass and decided to learn our parts so I could play bass for our show. But our very first show, we performed from 2008 until 2012, or no, I guess 2011. 2008 to 11. It is just extremely drum intensive. There's no vocals. I played bass in this giant like cage, like it looks like a bird cage. And then we had the movie that played along behind us, and we just kind of played all over. And we had horror movie clips kind of as the vocals.
I was a big White Zombie fan, obviously a Rob Zombie fan.
Yeah.
And so we would use horror movie clips on the first album as vocal parts, and it was all instrumental. So as strange as that is, it seemed to work. And then going into the second album, of course, like, and it's all tragic. My brother passed away. I wrote a whole album about it, you know, the things that you struggle with, dealing with a tragedy, all the emotions that you would deal with. Plus, I'd already written a film called The Witch Hunt, and it was all based on the 7 deadly sins. And so we kind of broadened our perspective of, like, here we were, this struggling with pornography, and it was like, well, here's a bunch of things that everyone struggles with in lots of different ways and lots of different directions. And we did it like a horror film. I mean, you know, I came from the Ozfest days, so I became a believer in the year 2000. And the only Christian band that I knew that I identified with back in that day was like Living Sacrifice. And so, anyway, so coming from that into a Christian world, you know, everything that you see in your art that you've been influenced by, Static X, 9 Inch Nails, Rob Zombie, you know, White Zombie, the Melvins, Reverend Horton Heat, like all these different things, and you're throwing that into your musical influences and saying, Lord, here's who I am, and the Lord wants to use you for who you are. And so we're able to kind of go places that, yeah, I mean, a lot of believers aren't able to.
So we really started out in the Christian world, and we were playing mostly churches and Christian venues and Christian music festivals and things like that. And then when we put out The Witch Hunt, we actually contacted one of Rob Zombie's producers just out of the blue, and he was like, yeah, I love it, let's do it. Okay. So we recorded our second album.
We were really nervous
at Tommy Lee's house, the drummer for Motley Crue, which was just crazy. And after that album, we started to branch more into just general places, and then we started going overseas more as well. And so through that, we got to play like in Germany and Poland and New Zealand, and we played in Chile and Brazil. And he's actually got to play in Peru a couple times. But that evolution turned into our third album, which is what we are performing live now. We released it right before COVID. We had one just awesome tour that fall, and then COVID hit and everything shut down. But last year, like, our schedule was awesome. We had festivals from like May to October all over, just playing with so many cool bands. And then of course COVID shut everything down.
We did have a song that hit Billboard. Like, that was a really cool silver lining, like an unexpected, you never would guess it in your entire life, whatever.
So that, that was definitely
so
cool.
Yeah, it was a really cool like silver lining through all of it.
But this third album, so we went from like pornography addiction, and I actually, not because of his pornography and addiction, but kind of tied into it, I dealt with bulimia. And so our first one was kind of pornography and bulimia. And then our second album was more about just 7 deadly sins, 7 different addictions. But then this third album really is just about identity and who are you and what defines you, and whose are you, I guess, and just encouraging people still to, you know, be honest with themselves and to rid their lives of things that don't better suit them and don't make them a better person.
And it's about connecting with other people to help each other realize like we're not alone, like we're a bridge in this. Like that's what I feel like that's what we're called to be in this. I feel like that's what I've been challenged to be, is how are you using your art to bridge, to create unity, to maybe ask questions here that you're struggling with and ask questions here, and maybe challenge people to see things in a different perspective or a different perception than what they're used to, and broaden horizons and create unity through that, and help people find a stepping stone to the Lord, you know?
Yeah. Yep. So
Elijah, that was a loaded answer for you. That was a lot of
yeah,
answers.
that was a lot of got a question based off of that. So with how you started the band, it was a pretty massive oversimplification from the sound of things. So like, what do you think made you ready to kind of just start that, and kind of like what sort of circumstances were around that before that happened that kind of caused that to be really ready to happen?
I
No,
think for
hold on. You know that you're asking, this is like 15 years ago,
yeah,
17 years ago, 15
no,
years ago.
15 years ago.
Oh my gosh, we have to remember back so far.
So I think for me, the day before my jump day, I would not have believed that this would be my life. If you told me
Yeah.
15 years from now you're going to be living in a caravan touring the world, I would never believe you.
With no money even.
Yeah. But that day during that sermon about whenever my American dream vision popped up, I really did feel the Lord telling me, like, listen, this is the big reason why. In that sermon, he talked a lot about how there are so many creative type, missionary type people, that they're very creative. They've got a lot of great ideas, but they don't have the business side to make these ideas happen. These creative ideas just fall through the cracks because they don't know what to do. They don't know what's next. How do I do this?
Yeah.
What's next? Well, I went to college and I got a degree in marketing, and I've worked in business just about my whole life. And so I realized, and the Lord made me realize, that he gave T these really amazing creative ideas. And here I am as his wife, somebody who can really implement them and help him turn them into reality. And so that day, it was just so very clear to me. And he and I talked about it, and then just started getting to work. Like, we just believed that it was going to happen.
Yeah. We would
He
just
had
start
to-
like writing down these different goals of, if in order to do a film or whatever, like sell a car.
Yeah, we got to
Yeah.
sell a car if we want to film this. Or we got to sell another car if we want to record this. And then eventually we had to sell everything so we could just be on the road.
But after being in bands for so many years, we also learned that in order to do this full time, you have to sacrifice what it looks like to everyone else, how to live. I mean, because like right now, for instance, we probably have, I don't know, 8 t-shirts, which is also our show shirts, 4 or 5 pairs of jeans, 2 pairs of boots, few hats, a lot of music equipment. So we live very minimalistic. So to go from a 4-bedroom house with 3 cars and a hot tub to moving into this, like, what do you get rid of? Like, how do you decide what you keep? Like, what's your needs and what's your wants?
And you can only keep what fits. So now anytime, like if I want to buy a new pair of boots, I have to say, okay, well, I've got to get rid of this pair. So the new pair has to be cooler and better than my old pair. And there's a lot of stuff that we've hung on to through many years.
But that's part of it too. Like, being able to live that simply allows us to, as in the music business, we don't make a lot of scratch, so to say. You make enough to survive, and the good Lord blesses us with that. And we have a lot of supporters out there that never gave up on us through COVID, and have still kept us going even to this point, that we're super grateful for. And so, like, I
was just going to talk about kind of the process and how we really officially made it happen.
Yeah. Okay.
He had already written the songs, and Phil had been coming over to our house, and they'd just been kind of just drumming, and they didn't really know if they were writing songs, and they just evolved into songs. Kind of is how it happened. And so he had a pretty good idea of songs, and it was only 4 songs.
Yeah, it's like 4, and then we had a bunch of other drummers doing other things, but I think it eventually turned into me and Phil and 4 songs.
4 songs.
Yeah.
And so he played with his other band. He was with Risen Drums, which is a drum manufacturer out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they're called Franklin Drums now. But he was already playing with Risen, and he was talking to those guys about this new project we were working on, and one of the guys involved was like, hey, I have a recording studio up here. If you guys want to come up and you can record your album up here, y'all can stay here. It'll be a lot cheaper. And so that's what they did. They drove up to St. Paul, Minnesota. And in January of 2007, it was freezing cold. It was like negative 34. I don't know what
I
it
never
is in
saw weather like
Celsius.
that.
I don't, in American is negative -34. So cold. Which probably is very close to Celsius and -34. Anyway,
Yeah.
so they recorded up there and then had come back home, and we started working on putting together the live show and what do we need, and we knew, and filming. We were filming a ton because we have video that goes along with our show. So the filming, really that takes a lot of time. Putting together music takes a lot of time, but then filming just adds so much more time to it.
We never knew.
And money. But it makes the live show really cool because it's all synced together. And so, but then we had the film done and the music done, and we started talking about booking our shows, and we're like, it's so weird and so different. Let's record a live video so then we can send that out and have that to try to book. So we recorded our live thing. And
back in the video days.
Yeah, and with the
DVDs.
Yeah. And so, and then we just started selling everything. And by 2008, we had sold our house and sold everything we owned. Everybody said that we were crazy for doing it, and everybody told us not to do it, but we were just so convicted that this is what we were supposed to do. And in my mind, I was like, we can always just go back. I've been there. I know how to get there. I can go back.
Yeah.
I can't come over to this side 15 years from now, and it is crazy. And
it's a challenge to navigate, especially through the last couple of years.
Especially through COVID. We are a charity. We're a nonprofit organization, and we have been for 5 years now. Yeah. And so people donate to us to help us keep going because we've never charged for a show. We only live off of just a donation or the door or whatever the venue wants to play us.
Or people who let us use their electricity at their house and we stay with them. Like we have a lot of people around the country like that, or around the world like that.
For sure. And so all through the years, people are like, you can't do that. You can't. And we've just continued on and just done it.
Yeah, the Lord has really, so this is the thing, Elijah, giving the Lord your heart, mind, soul, strength, your finances, all those things, that's when he gives you an abundant life, right? But I used to think that when you give the Lord all of those things, that he gives you this abundant life financially, you'll be financially secure and blah, blah, blah. I never dreamed of the journey that we've been on for the last 15 years. And ultimately what I've come to realize is abundant life, in my opinion, the definition of abundant life is the roller coaster ride of going straight up, straight down, the super lows, the super highs, the twists, the turns. What is it? It's a super thrill of life. Yeah. And that's what the Lord has given us, especially the last 15 years. Man, I can't tell you the crazy super mountaintop highs and the bottom of the ocean fall apart fails, and all of in between, and trying to be an artist through all of this and trying to share your heart with people who can just rip it apart in one little comment, all years of things. And it's like, wow, okay. But the people who identify with you and connect with you and get what you're trying to say, that's the reality of the language of the bridge, in my opinion, too, of all of these years of everything you've been through and everything you learned. All these stepping stones comes through your music, through your evolution as an artist, as a human being, as who the Lord wants you to be, to the spot where we are right now. And we don't even know what that is, other than let's just keep pushing forward until the Lord shows us another direction.
He ended up writing a handful of songs through COVID, which is pretty cool because usually our writing process is a little later on after we release the album. But since we weren't able to tour, he was like, well, I'm just gonna start writing. And we have a studio here in our town called Studio 221. They have invited us in and have been amazing. And he's had a co-writer this whole time. So the very first show was just him and Phil in a room drumming, right?
Yeah.
Well, the second show, he
Oh yeah, I did everything on
did
GarageBand
everything in GarageBand, and so he wrote all the tracks and
back
everything.
in
So there's-
2010.
Yeah, so there's several like GarageBand loops. If you open GarageBand, find it, you'll hear
Yeah.
a lot of our second album.
And then the third one
And
was
the
Logic.
third one was in Logic.
And then Pro Tools.
Yeah, Logic to Pro Tools.
Yeah.
So he did that one, and
Brazil. I wrote most of those songs in Brazil.
yeah, and he created our producer, Rob Zombie's engineer, buddy.
Yeah.
His name's Chris Batesford.
Yeah,
He
he's a super good dude.
helped T co-write several songs on that third one, but this fourth one is fun because it's just the two guys co-writing here, and we'll go back to Chris to record again whenever that happens. I don't know.
He
But
said he's working with Nickelback until 2021 in Canada right now. So
yeah, he just did Chris Daughtry's album.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys have kind of started to get into this a little bit, but how did you guys' Christian journeys start, and kind of what is the process of that been to get where you are now with that, if that makes sense?
with Chris.
No, it's Christian.
Oh, it's Chris. Oh, it's,
You want me to go?
yeah.
Or you go?
No, you go first.
Well, I became a Christian after you.
Okay, so yes, I'm trying to think of this nutshell story. I kind of grew up in church, in the Methodist church. My parents, we went to church, but and I was even involved. All these things. Well, I'm adding color to the video.
Yeah.
See.
Oh.
Oh man. Hey, what's up, Elijah?
Hello.
Hello, mate.
Hello.
Oh, anyway, man, I grew up like a skateboard kid with a bunch of my buddies in Arkansas, and we're still friends to this day. Like 20 of us, 25 of us, 30 of us are still friends after all these years from the 80s. And anyway, I grew up and skateboard kid, started smoking, started doing just drugs at an early age, ended up in a mental institution by the time I was in high school, and then moved to a small town, played in a couple rock bands. One was called Bloodshot Eye, one was called Uttermost, and learned a lot from a lot of those bands as far as music goes. But through the process of becoming a believer, I worked in a factory, and everyone at the factory knew me as the drug guy. And I'd had 7 lung operations from 1996 to the year 2000. And man, I can't say it, like suicide. I struggled with suicide so much. I struggled with who I was. I couldn't even have human contact without being on something because of my lung operations and everything that I'd been through. Painkillers, I struggled so bad. And to this day, have to be cautious of things like that because of my past.
Yeah.
And it's hard and it's challenging. I'd had my 7th lung operation, and the doctor said I'd been on painkillers for a year after, and the doctor said, I can't give you any more. And I said, well, I need pain medicine. And he said, you're going to have to learn how to survive without it. And there was a Christian dude at the factory that I worked at. And I went up to him and I said, hey man, I know that God loves you, but he hates me. And maybe you could pray for me that he would give me $1 million and I wouldn't have to work in this factory anymore. I could live a different life and not go through the problems that I'm having. And he said, man, have you ever tried Jesus? I was like, dude, are you an idiot? Like, you can't see Jesus or God or any of that stuff. And no, man. And I probably gave him a middle finger and, walked off. And
you didn't speed away on your forklift.
Oh yeah. Well, I probably sped away on my forklift. That's right. Cause I was a drug addicted forklift driver at my job. And anyway, I went home that night and I actually stood on my apartment building. Like I had this moment of, I don't want to live anymore. I was, 24 or 25 years old. And I was like, why am I on this planet? I don't understand why I'm here. I have nothing to offer. I'm just this factory worker, druggie. I had a baby. I was a single dad. My son helped me start my life change. It was hard. It was hard to try to get out of the situation that I was in. And you feel like you're the only one struggling. And so I went back to the dude the next day. I didn't jump off my building, anything like that. I didn't have the courage. And I went back to this guy and I was like, dude, look, I've been through 7 lung operations. I've been through doctors. I've been through psychologists, psychiatrists. I've been through the state mental hospital, depression, suicide, hate. Like, if your God doesn't change my life, then what will I be? What will I do then? What will I become? And he was like, dude, you're thinking about this in the wrong way. Let me tell you this. God wants to take everything that you just said, and he wants to use all of those things, because all those things make up who you are. And he just wants to use you for who you are. Your ADHD, your insanity, your craziness, your love for music, the way that you tick, the things, whatever it is that the Lord has put into you. He wants to use all those unique things and who you are. And he wants to use that. And that's what that is. And that's, to me, so he prayed with me while I'm on my forklift, this, and my life changed instantly. Like it's like Discovery Channel, like Ghost Hunters. Like I can't explain it. It's something I can never explain.
Yeah.
And it was the year 2001.
No, 2000.
Or the year 2000. And I started going to this church that a pastor friend of mine, he was my only friend at the time that I thought, because I left my life of drugs and I didn't have anybody. So I'm just like hanging out with my preacher buddy who was probably like, dude, get away from me. And it was the most challenging moments of my life trying to figure out, because people were like, cover up your tattoos, take out your piercings, and get rid of your music and listen to this and listen to this. And I would be like, this is terrible. This isn't me. But I was trying to learn, and I was trying to soak it in. And it's been challenging ever since, because there's no handbook. There's the Bible, and there's focus and clarity on him. And then there's other people telling you how they're viewing the Lord and their perspective and your perspective. So it's trying to navigate all these different things. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing the less I know, and the more I need to probably be paying attention, and I'm terrible at it.
Oh, I haven't heard that story in a minute. So he got saved in September of 2000, and we met on October 1st.
Yeah.
I had gone to that church through like my middle school years, and we met at church. He had given his testimony like during the service. And so we met that night just talking outside. But I had a boyfriend at the time, so I wasn't like, it was just cool to talk to him, whatever. But then I break up with the boyfriend, and he starts inviting me to his little small group at his house. It was him and his pastor buddy and a couple other guys, and they would just, do little Bible studies and stuff. And I would not go for weeks because it was karaoke night at one of my favorite places, and I wanted to sing karaoke. But then finally one day I just decided to go, and his pastor buddy that he's talking about, his name is Ben Anderson. I was just able to start asking him like really real questions and really heavy questions and things that I had, struggled with and wondered about or whatever. And he was just great and honest and safe. It was just a really cool situation.
Yeah, the environment was really.
Yeah. And so.
I mean, we were all just fresh and new.
Yeah. And he was younger at the time. I think he was probably in his, 30s, maybe 40s.
Yeah, maybe 40s.
Younger 40s. Anyway, so he was like all pumped up on life. And he helped me to realize that even though I'd kind of grown up in church, that a relationship with Jesus is so much more intimate and more of like a friendship relationship than I had ever experienced. And I think really hanging out with him, because he had such a radical life change, and he was such a positive influence. Like he says now, whenever we were hanging out, because I was partying still pretty hard and pretty big when we first met, and he was like, I thought you were going to bring me back into that lifestyle, but he ended up helping me get out of that lifestyle.
Well, I think we just kind of leaned on each other. I feel like really like looking back to like the Lord just beyond music. Like when we first met too, like you didn't even know I played drums.
No.
And I didn't know that she sang.
No. Yeah. But we knew all of each other's dirty little past because we had almost had like a one-up each other conversation. And he's like, well, I did this. I'm like, well, I did this. Well, I did this. And it was like, okay, well, now we know all the dirty stuff. It's just crazy. So like I said, we had met October 1st. We ended up getting married that January.
Yeah, 3 months.
So super fast. Everybody thought we were pregnant. Turns out we're just a little crazy. Not pregnant. And yeah, and we just celebrated 20 years. So
and my son is 23, soon to be 24.
His son was 2 when we met and had just turned 3. He was 2, turned 3 in December, and we got married in January. And so yeah, so Tristan has been part of this journey as well.
If you see any of the older pictures, you will see a picture of Phil was wearing a pig mask and Veronica was playing bass in the cage or wearing the other mask. And then my son, Tristan, was wearing the gas mask, and he toured with us for many years from when he maybe had been 11, 12 to 16, 17-ish, and then a few one-offs here and there. But people that may or may not have kept up with us, if they see older pictures, that's my son when he was young, and he just graduated college. So
props to him.
Yeah, wow.
Aye. So is there any like really big moments in your Christian life where you kind of look back and that's or something really clicked, or is there just like absolute loads of those, so it's hard to pick a few?
I mean, I definitely have like huge bookmark moments in my life where I know that the Lord, it was all the Lord, particularly like selling our house when we did. It was during the huge 2008 economy crisis. We were going through the recession. The housing market was crashing.
And it sold without a for sale sign.
Yeah, we didn't even buy a for sale sign. We bumped into a guy. He's like, hey, I'm looking to buy a house. And he came over, and then the next day he actually bought the house for more than asking because he wanted to pay his realtor because he'd been looking for so long.
But then also,
that's
like,
a crazy one.
We're on the road in our toter home. The engine blew up.
Our big caravan,
which it was in California, and it cost $23,000. I don't know how many euros or anything that would be. Golly,
a lot.
30,000 euros.
Yeah.
And it cost that, and we don't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
And we thought it was the end. We had just recorded our second album, and we just thought, wow, okay, we're done. It's over. Mm-hmm. And in 12 days, people from all over the world gave that much money, gave $20,000. And then our engine, the Caterpillar engine place, gave us a discount for the engine because it was this whole big miracle that everyone was watching. And it was like, wow, this is crazy. I mean, and then there's moments like that. And there's moments that, where you fail, like you completely fall apart as a human being. And I'm super guilty of that. I'm super guilty of being a liar, a cheat, a thief. I mean, I have completely fallen on my face as a believer through this journey and hurt people, had to apologize and ask forgiveness for a lot of people. And man, the journey of this is challenging. Of playing music. I mean, we were on the road for 11 years almost straight, and you're on the road, so you're living like a vampire. You never sleep. You're setting up and performing and driving, and you forget how to live like a human being. And when you come home and you're here, you just don't know. So it's hard to keep your focus on the Lord, and that there's a challenge in that. So I have a few pastor friends. My pastor in Nashville at the Anchor Church is someone that really like feeds into me spiritually. I think trying to have routine and discipline and different structures and things like that I have to work on. But again, man, it's learning from mistakes, and it's trying to keep going forward and trying to keep moving forward and writing those things into songs.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, we have so many little stories, but I was going to say, even when we were going into creating our third album, we were talking to Phil, and we were like, hey, are you in? Are you out? You know, he started hanging out with us when he was like 17. By this time he was like 32 or something. And
He's an old
you know,
pig.
he had spent his entire 20s with us, never done anything else. And we're like, do you want to go on with this next album with us, or do you want to exit? Like, you know, we've given him this opportunity every time we do a thing. And this time he was like, you know what, I think I'm going to go. We're like, okay, cool. And so then we're like, oh, it's down to the two of us. Are we going to do this? And then also financially, we didn't have any savings or anything. And so we did not have the money at all. And we ended up doing a fundraiser just through our state. And we made like $12,000 in 12 hours. And so we're like, well, okay, I guess we're still
I
doing
already
this.
had the music in the film, so
We
yeah.
didn't like, but had that money not come along, I don't know what we would have done. We were really considering like, okay, is this chapter closed? And like constantly we're like, is this over? You know, even before COVID, now after COVID, we're just constantly asking like, is it over? Is it not? But honestly, the Lord was so clear leading us into this. I feel like he will be equally clear for the next step. And so until I feel like this chapter is really closed, we're just trucking right along.
And that's the thing too. It's Elijah, that's what's super interesting about our life too, is that we don't just see it as, I mean, it's the two of us, obviously. Veronica is our manager and does everything, tour manage, booking, merchant. She just does everything. She's the chef. She's the greatest. And she, if it wasn't for her and her gifts to be able to take my creative, I was going to say insane, creative mind, but just, I don't know where I'm going with this beyond that. This, without the supporters, the feast of friends is what we call it. That's where I'm trying to go with this. It's not just the two of us. It's the whole, like there's a whole group of people out there that I wish there was a way to somehow have a big barbecue somewhere and you can invite people from all over the world that have ever given to us, and I'm not just talking about money, that have ever given us food or advice or electricity or shower or a show. Anybody that's out there that is a part of our life, that I'd love to see how everyone could be connected. I'd love to see just the spider web.
So this is very morbid, but I've always thought that day will happen at his funeral. And I'm going to get to see it and he won't. But then you'll get to see everybody in heaven. Well, but I do. It is morbid, but I'm like, I'm going to finally get all these people together. But he won't be here. It's true.
I don't know. Anyway, Elijah, it's like I'm a creative person. Veronica's a creative person, but she's very gifted at just keeping us going. And whatever that looks like, because there's no music handbook in it. I mean, Curtain Call Records has been tremendous for us. They've really scratch and clawed for us the way that we scratch and claw and just keep trying to survive, just like everybody else out there. And part of it is taking everything that we've learned and grown from it the last couple of years and keep trying to be in a creative process, you know?
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
How did you hear about us?
Right. Okay, I think it probably came up on Apple Music for you or something like that in Christian rock, so I thought I'd check it out. And then I think after that I kind of realized that you guys, even though you aren't like a metal band, the community that you kind of fit into is more the metal community than anything else, which is something that I'm kind of big on. So I think because of that, I was kind of like, these guys are great. So I think
we've never been to Scotland. We've been to England, and so we spent time in London as well as up in Nottingham area. But we'd like to go back, and if we do, I mean, we're so close, we might as well come say hi.
Are you kidding me? We're just gonna have to do a show.
I'm curious what the response would be in Scotland, just because the metal scene here there's not like loads of Christian bands. The one Christian metal band I can think of broke up recently. So
Oh,
I'm
no.
just picturing you showing up to.
Well, what's interesting
Yeah.
is that a lot of people don't even, because we are believers,
Yeah.
but when it comes to the term Christian, the thing that I struggle with is the box. The people who will never go into the box, or the people who never come out of the box. But the problem too is, like, even in the Christian world, we're on the fringes of the Christian, because even the Christians sometimes are like, we're too far out for them. So we just say, our music is art. Like it's just art. We don't even put it in the box.
Yeah.
And so people struggle with that. Yeah, we're in the metal community.
Yeah.
We don't know what to do with ourselves. People don't know what to do with ourselves. That's where we go.
Yeah.
It seems like that's a given. And the horror movie community, we're in all these places. But at the same time, I feel like we're just art. And if people come up to us and find out who we are, they know what we're about. So going into places, Christian or not Christian, we never view it that way. We just view it as, hey, we're doing a performance and we're hanging out with people tonight. That's all. And so we don't ever see it as a Christian thing or a non-Christian thing. We just view it as, hey man, we're all doing this with each other. Like, let's go jam.
Yeah, Scotland is a very special country because while they're speaking English, it takes you forever to figure out what exactly are they saying.
What about our accents?
American accent is more phonetically normal, if that makes sense. Like, you probably think I've got a Scottish accent, which I kind of do at this point, because I'm from Canada and I lived there till I was basically 10, but my accent is pretty much down the drain from that at this point. But if you hear like a really proper Scottish accent, the best way to describe it is it's the laziest way to say things possibly. Like if you're talking about
example,
like the Central Belt, you talk to anyone there, you'll have a bit of a hard time at first. I don't think I could do justice to an example for, I might try. Okay. But I'm trying to think what's a very uniquely Scottish.
Yeah, you definitely have more Scottish than Canadian. Like I didn't hear any Canadian, but it is like I was surprised that it wasn't as thick because like sometimes these Scottish these people on like Instagram or whatever, they'll go on a huge rant, but they'll be Scottish and they generally have the subtitles because you're right, it is hard to understand. But I watch it over and over and over because it's amazing. It's so I love it. Do you
remember Dougal was from Scotland, right? From all the Cornerstone.
Let me look.
Because he had a bunch of his mates come over with him, and we had stickers that said "Kill the Pig," and T-shirts, and they bought all the stickers and all the T-shirts that said "Kill the Pig" on it, and took it back to Scotland.
Yeah, there's not really one set Scottish accent, but the central belt of it is kind of similar, which is where most of the people are. But you go to like Lewis or somewhere like that, the accent is just completely different. It's not a stereotypical Scottish accent in the slightest.
Yeah.
Like I could try and replicate that one because it's not as technical.
So
hello, I'm from Lewis. It's just a really special accent when you go to that area. Anyway, what were you saying?
He's from it's not going to show up.
Yeah, I'm not going to see that.
West Lothian.
Oh yeah, West Lothian.
Yes, that's where he's from.
Okay, like I know that's a place, and if I was at a train station, I would see that somewhere, but I've got absolutely no clue where that is on the map.
So how did you end up in Scotland?
Okay. Basically what happened was with my parents, they felt a very clear call that we were to pack up and move to Scotland. And basically with my dad, he was going to a college that was kind of like, for him, what he saw as kind of like the pinnacle of what you could do with learning. And there God kind of met him and said, you know what, I forget exactly because this is like 6 years ago, but basically through being at college, my dad felt a very clear call that we were to pack up and head off to Scotland. And my mom had been feeling like that for a year too,
Wow.
without saying anything about that. So they basically just kind of realized that we were supposed to do that. And I think probably within about 3 months of that happening, we flew over to Scotland, and it was crazy. And like all the things you shared, there's just so many times in that where you kind of see where God's moved. Like a more recent one is with my dad's visa, because my mum's Scottish. Everyone has a British citizenship except for him, so he's had to go on visas. And he was a student for, I think, 3 years, maybe four, I forget exactly, but at the beginning. And he was on a student visa, and he was doing like part-time work as a pastor because that's what he did in Canada. And like he applied for another student visa, and that got rejected. And it got to the point where he ended up applying for a spousal visa, which under that he could work full time. And if it was he had not gotten that, then we wouldn't have been able to move from the part of Scotland that we were originally at, to the part where we're now at, which is kind of where God's called us to be, and where my dad's working full time as a pastor. And that also helped my sister because it meant that she could work at college here, not work, study at a college here, which before she was having to do A levels, which absolutely suck. So there was a lot of different stories about how God really came through.
So are you in school?
Um, yes, I've been homeschooled my whole life, so that's a slightly weird question. And now it's even weirder because I'm about to head off to college, which isn't the same thing as it is over there. Kind of the best way to describe it is high school for all ages, kind of. So it's school, it's just a very different type of school. And like they've got the normal subjects, but there's a lot of things like what I'm going there to do is broadcast media, which is not a normal subject.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then do you want to stay in Scotland, go back to Canada, come to the US, go to Australia?
I think I have no clue what's going to happen in the future. And that's something that I've kind of learned from like the past 6 years, is that you cannot predict what exactly is going to happen. But I do
even
know
us right now, we have no idea.
Yeah, that I'm going to finish that course and kind of do what I can. But as with going back to Canada, I don't think I would go back just for the sake of it, just because one, I've already adapted to this culture, so it makes more sense, kind of. And it would be such a weird culture shock going back to such a safe place. Because where we lived in Canada, it's not an exaggeration to say it was one of the safest places in the world. It was like Vancouver Island, British Columbia. So that's not really like.
That's where Chris is, I think, right now. I think that's where the Nickelback guys live, and if so, that's where I'm right now. My brother-in-law's there as well.
Yeah, so I don't know what's gonna happen in the future. I do know that I would like to start some sort of a band at some point, and that I would like to do video as a job. But I don't know exactly what is gonna happen because I don't see any way of predicting that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What do you play? Do you play an instrument?
I play drums. I need more practice, but I do that. And then I think we all think we do. regardless of what everyone else thinks. And I kind of mess around with things like bass where it's needed to write songs, but I wouldn't say I actually play that stuff just because it's not like what I would play if
Yeah.
I'm going to play an instrument. I'd go to drums.
I only play drums, so
Yeah.
I actually the second album and the third album, I built all the skeletal systems using loops, and then when we got to the studio in LA, we recreated and smashed them into our loops.
Yeah.
So it made them more custom. But the new album the new project I'm working on, I don't know whether it'll be an album or what it'll be, but my buddy that I'm writing with, his name is Steel Dortch is his name, but he's a metal guy, so he's really good at it. Like, so coming up with cool riffs, there's so many different things.
Yeah.
Because I'm not using loops, he's actually my loop machine, which is really cool. So it's and he's a great engineer, so we're able to go through and kind of find sounds and actually write music as opposed to writing loops or just taking loops. We're actually writing our own stuff, and you can see the evolution from 3 albums. You can even see how this one is getting bigger because of the better sounds, the better instruments,
Yeah.
Anyway, the process.
Do you have a camera or do you film stuff on your phone?
I've got a DSLR, which does the trick. It looks as professional as I need it to, basically. And you can do quite a lot with something like that.
So you just get out and film stuff?
I film various different things. Like, I've filmed some poetry videos for my sister because she's a poet and she's got a book and things. So we did some stuff like that. I'm curious you said you had 2 drummers at the beginning. What exactly did that look like? Did you have like 2 drum kits, or do you have like 1 drum kit? And
if you if you go to White Collar Sideshow YouTube, anyone that's listening, and you go search live videos, you'll see what our old setup looked like. But basically, my drum set was at the front of the stage. Probably this, like, it was big. Like, I had a 36-inch bass drum, pots and pans, then a whole drum set, giant saw blades. And so mine was here, and then
a meter. His bass drum was a meter.
Oh yeah. And then
huge.
So get the camera angle. So I'm here, right, front stage, but Phil would be back here on a drum riser with a double bass drum set.
Right.
So he would just a basic double bass drum set. I mean, it looked cool, but he would do the stick tricks, and he would basically be the drummer.
Okay.
Like, I would write his drum parts as the drummer, and then I would play like 4 on the floor on top while I'm doing vocals. Yeah. So I would use him as the drummer to get the metal stuff and to do all those things he can do, run on the bass drums. And I'm more of like a clutch, like static at disco beats. Like, that's my style, industrial. So that's what I would do on top of his stuff while I was doing vocals. So Phil would be here on a giant drum riser. My drum set's here. And then Veronica's cage is here. But the movie is here. Yeah. So we're all almost, I don't want to say you're inside the movie, but the movie is showing you what's going on. I mean, it's like Pink Floyd, The Wall.
And of course, we had to have everything running through our ears. With the 2 drummers, you have to have the click track. And so, like, that was vital.
That was our first learning lesson.
We had to buy the click, and get the click track going.
And learning how to do your show. Like, it's one thing when you're living in the US and you have a 20-foot trailer. I don't know how many meters that is, but but try taking that whole show to Germany or Poland. Yeah. Like, you take your computer and your in-ears, and then where's everything else? Where's the cage?
Well, we would bring our projector.
But we would bring the projector, but I mean, we could do everything, but we'd go in the city and try to find things to beat on and culture toward to. If we played Scotland, we'd try to find Scotland culture. Obviously, it's different now, but that's how it was back then. Like, it was like Blue Man Group meets Rob Zombie. Like, it was more of the live show. Yeah. And so that was the hard part. People would hear the album and they'd go, "Oh, it's not as good as your live show." And so I think right now is the evolution of our live show. I feel like is as good as our last album. Yeah. but when you see it live, it's a spectacle.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
the album is awesome. The album
Yeah.
stands. This album we're the most proud of. It definitely stands on its own, but the live show is just that's where it's
Yeah.
at.
And
Anybody
if you
can-
go to YouTube, you can see we did a live from quarantine in
Yeah.
Nashville.
I mean,
And you can see the whole show is on there, exactly what we do. I mean, obviously it's on a video screen, so but it's super rad. And the sound is great too. So if you listen to it in ears, like it sounds really great.
so I just want to encourage you as a drummer, you can still write really cool, huge shows and albums and stuff like that. And just to like get out there and film and just film.
And you can do it
Just
as
film
a
stuff.
46-year-old.
And then like if it's cool, throw it up just to have it online, and then you can have a little portfolio for when everybody's knocking at your door trying to hire you.
Yeah. Like I film quite a few things. Like I've got a wee YouTube channel, which that is a wee bit of a box for what I film because it's all me talking. But there's some videos that I've done where I've basically tried to take a song and make the most epic video that I can for it. And that's been something that has really taught me a lot about video and just how much time it takes to put together something for like a 2-minute song.
Yeah.
Hours.
We filmed like we just did. Our whole live show is an hour, right?
Yeah.
It's 7 minutes
ish.
And so that's an hour film, and we added comic book strips and different things in between. So you're talking about editing.
It was
going through days and days and days and days of footage.
2.5 years.
2.5 years.
It took us 2.5 years to do our latest film.
To edit, to even get all from the filming all the way down to editing. But the editing, and then.
But then it's so cool.
But our last film that we did all on green screen, and so it's really cool. Like similar to the film Sin City. So we had our own wardrobes. We had a small cast. We had a great big white room that 5 Star Productions, which is in our hometown of Fort Smith, Arkansas, they let us paint it green. And so we could bring in cars and we could bring in motorcycles, and we had friends volunteer and everyone that was a part of it. So we did everything. And it's a cool, like sci-fi Twilight Zone feel.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of those videos? They're all the black and white. It looks like Sin City.
I think I've seen like 1 or 2 of them at some point.
So they're literally, when you do find them, they're just our friends. And so like the guy with the pig mask in the new videos, the latest one, he and I went to high school together, and he's our dentist, and we're just like good friends. And then there's a guy on it with a bunch of tattoos on his face, and he's our tattoo artist. And so it's like my little sister's in it. It's super cool.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and watch that stuff. So I'm curious for you guys, how did you get into metal and all the other music that you're into? Because that's not something that people necessarily easily get into.
Sure.
I'm not.
Well, I grew up in the Veronica plays metal, but it's not her jam.
Yeah.
It's not that she doesn't like it. It's just because we're in that world. But
I enjoy good performers, but that's not what.
That makes sense.
People on a run or whatever.
I grew up like in the 80s, so but I got into like.
I think we're older than your parents. I'm guessing that we are.
Barely, I think. Not much. I don't think much. No.
Yeah, so I like in the 80s was for me Motley Crue. It was all the hair metal. Yeah, Poison and Tesla. I think Poison and Tesla was my first concert, and then like Metallica was probably my biggest fan. Like when I first heard Lars in the metal world as a drummer, I think I had like the Creeping Death single or something, and then I got it was like 1986, I think, when I got Master of Puppets. I could be wrong on that, but man, changed my life. Like heavy metal music changed my life, but not just from Motley Crue or Ozzy Osbourne, but Metallica in a kind of a sense changed my life. But I grew up in the 80s, man. I like my first my cassette tape that I bought with my own money. Prince, Michael Jackson, the Beach Boys. Like I grew up in like I loved pop. I loved watching the Grammy Awards back then and the music awards and all those things, because that's what was on the radio. So like you grew up with all this stuff, and then all of a sudden you hear metal for the first time.
You're
like, wow. Then I
Yes.
got into I think as the 90s went out, like one of the performances that kind of changed my world was we went and saw the Melvins, Reverend Horton Heat, and White Zombie in like 1993 or 94
Yeah.
or something like that. And White Zombie opened up my world to, wow, this is theatrics and a horror movie and all these things, and it's music and it's killer. And then when we went and saw Nine Inch Nails back in '94, when I could see that you could do film and everything, and how your live show went with your albums. But early on, it was Pink Floyd, like Pink Floyd The Wall.
Yeah.
Like I was consumed by it. Like I watched it so many times. The Doors is probably my all-time favorite. Love, they changed my world back in the day. Jim Morrison. I read so many biographies, and I know people think that's a weird thing, but it was one of those bands. Like, what can I say? Um, but yeah, I mean, I'd have to say a band like Living Sacrifice
Yeah.
changed my life. Um, there's so many different ways, but into the metal realm, I grew up an Ozfest kid.
Yeah.
Like I grew up hair metal, and then it was Rage Against the Machine, it was Korn, it was
Mhm.
Slipknot, it was Disturbed, it was Static X, it was Pantera, it was all these things that that were coming out in this kind of mixing genres. POD was another band that I saw that I didn't really know was believers at the time,
Yeah.
because I wasn't a believer. There are so many of these bands that infiltrated where I was, like Machine Head. Like I loved Machine Head, and then whatever. Like then I became a Christian, and I
Yeah.
got cut off from, because no one was in my world, and I
Yeah.
got cut off from whatever it was that I was listening to, and I never really picked back up,
Yeah.
because then we started doing our own bands and living on the
Mhm.
road, and so hard to keep up with music.
Yeah.
But I have a really good friend that I stay with when we're in Arkansas, and he buys me tickets to concerts, and I've been able to see bands like Clutch and Baroness
Mhm.
and lots of different metal bands because of
Killing
him.
Joke.
Killing Joke. I mean, I got to see their 40th. Of course, they're not new, but I've seen so many bands because he keeps me in tune,
Yeah.
and because of that, you can kind of stay influenced by different things. And
Yeah.
I watch a lot of MTV music videos and modern what's going on, because we're in the video world. So I like to see
Yeah.
what's new, what's fresh. I like to hear the vocal processors of what's happening.
Mhm.
I like to hear what modern music is. And Veronica and I both became members of the Grammy Academy, which is worldwide. Like, yes.
So we actually get to vote on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
What
And we get
is-
to submit our music for Grammy Awards.
Yeah.
right.
What is the process for getting into that?
It's an application process. They open it up, I think, every January,
Right.
and you just fill out this huge application with all your credentials and all your recording experience, and then you also have to have recommendations for people within the academy to actually recommend you to join. So it's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, man.
We-
It's really cool.
Yeah.
he's recorded a lot more than I have, but we've recorded in the US as well as Brazil, and then now we're hoping that Chris stays in Canada, so then we can add another country to our list of places we've recorded. We'll see.
Yeah.
But it is super rad, super rad. Man, Elijah, dude, we over talked probably, right?
I mean, you're on a podcast as guest, so kind of what you're supposed to do is talk quite a bit.
All right. Well, we did that then.
Yes, you're very successful.
Man, human contact.
Yeah.
How is life over there with COVID and everything?
How has it been? It's been special. I think I was probably it was quite a surprise when everything shut down, as it probably was for you guys, I'm
Indeed.
guessing. Because like in February, it's like everyone knew coronavirus was a thing, but it was something that we were kind of just almost joking about and didn't quite realize how it was going to affect everything. So it was quite a surprise, and yeah, it's probably not been like ridiculously different from where it's been for you guys. I think things might be a bit more open there. Like now we've got churches open and they need to have masks on and
Yeah.
stuff. And I think live music it started in England, but Scotland and England, even though they're technically the same country, have their own wee political systems for deciding the rules. So we've got a very, I guess the best way to put it is the people in charge aren't the biggest fan of letting things be free again as compared to England, where the Boris Johnson very much is more for that. So I think right now where we're at is things will only get more open, I think. But yeah.
We hope the Delta variant has been terrible here.
Mhm.
And so there's been talk of things possibly shutting back down. So
Yeah.
who knows? We don't know. We've got shows booked starting August 13th, Friday the 13th. We're actually playing a film festival, which would be cool.
Yeah.
So we're playing the film festival and we are pretty much back on the road till November. I don't have a ton of shows booked. I've got just a handful, maybe 8 to 10 right now.
Mhm.
Between then and Thanksgiving, only because with everything so up in the air, I don't want to have, a 40-day tour
Yeah.
and
And shut back down.
shut it down. Plus, we're stopping by we have people that support us every month.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to stop by everybody's houses on this tour that we're going to be close to, just to say thank you and we love you and we appreciate you.
Sure.
And so they're going to be a big part of our tour anyway. So
By the way, for anyone out there, if you go to whitecollarsideshow.com or just Google White Collar Sideshow, you can
That's
find
us.
anything there is about us. But we have music and merch and all kinds of things. But there's also things that if you want to know more about what we do, it's on there as well.
Sure. And I do ship internationally. It's not the cheapest, but people
Yeah.
do it. I've sent stuff all over the globe. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
us. That's what we do. That's what we're all about.
Yes. Done it. So as we're kind of wrapping up a bit, is there things that people can pray for you guys right now or for your future?
Yeah, I think just really with us just getting back on the road,
Yeah.
feeling safe and comfortable
Yeah.
through that. And any shows that do happen, that we can have some good conversations with people and
Sure.
love on people.
Always, I mean, finances are always a plus. And then more importantly, just more love in the world. We just need to love each other.
Some more love.
Love.
Yeah.
More love and service. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can pray for you about?
I think one, that going into college would be smooth because I have zero experience with the public education system. And there's different things that I need to apply for and stuff within that, even though I've gotten into college pretty easy.
When does that start?
It starts at the end of August.
Oh, coming up.
Yeah, it is pretty soon. It's like a month. So there's that, yeah. And I think within our church, just that we'd be able to disciple people well, because we're kind of seeing that there's more and more people who are coming to the faith or being interested, and just kind of being able to manage that well, if that makes sense.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, it makes perfect sense, and we will pray for that.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, man.
It was nice to meet you.
Gosh, thanks for taking the time out
welcome.
to talk to us. Thanks for looking up our music. Oh man, I love it. I'm super appreciative and super grateful, and I'm thankful.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, thank you for coming on.
For sure. And hopefully we'll get to meet in person one day.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah. And contact us back anytime if you want to do another podcast. We'll do whatever.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Maybe in a year or two.
If you have any questions, anything.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Elisha.
Yeah.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much. I hope you really enjoyed it, because if you didn't, that must have been a boring hour for you. But yeah, hope to see you guys in the next episode, and stay tuned for that. And I suck at outros, so